that will serve him well as he undertakes his new responsibilities at our agency. Of course, I will leave it to Administrator Pruitt to share his vision and principles for his leadership at EPA, but I would like to highlight just a few examples from his biography, some examples of how he has worked with others during his service in the public sector that I think will be of particular interest to you. As Attorney General for Oklahoma, Mr. Pruitt worked with his Democratic counterpart in Arkansas to reach a landmark agreement regarding water quality in the Illinois River, which crosses the border between the two states. Together, they developed a statement of joint principles for a scientific study using EPA-approved methods, and both states agreed to be bound by the outcome. In another example from his time as Oklahoma Attorney General, Mr. Pruitt led an historic water rights settlement between the state of Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, and the Choctaw and Chickasaw tribal nations, which will preserve the ecosystems of scenic lakes and rivers on native lands. Now, as we all know, water rights cases can be lengthy, costly, and divisive. But the process developed under Administrator Pruitt's leadership has been praised widely for harnessing the principles of cooperation, hard work, and perseverance to enable parties with conflicting interests to forge common solutions. We commend you, Administrator Pruitt, for your demonstrated commitment to working with a variety of stakeholders in these very challenging situations. And we look forward to your bringing this experience and commitment to the many challenging issues that face this agency as we strive to protect the public health and environment of the people of the United States. I am confident that you will find that the dedicated public servants of EPA share your commitment to working hard and in close cooperation with our dedicated state partners to carry out our shared mission. We all understand that that is the only way we can fulfill the many responsibilities that Congress has given us. Following the law and using the best science to protect the health of our families and communities now and in the years to come. Administrator Pruitt, we are eager to hear your vision for leading EPA to achieve that mission and then to get down to work and talk with you about the many varied aspects of our important and complex work. But first, I just have a few small gifts to welcome you to the EPA. First, I would like to present you. You won't need to look too closely to see it.
Unfortunately, my eyes are not the best, so.
This is a lapel pin for EPA, which you can proudly wear.
Well, thank you.
On your lapel as you represent the agency.
Thank you very much.
And then secondly, when you go out into the field, you'll need this hat. And the hat will not only mark you as the representative and administrator of EPA, but it's really good at protecting you from the sun as well.
Thank you, thank you.
I suspect you know that from your baseball years.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for joining us. We are so pleased to have you.
Thanks, Catherine. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Catherine. It's been a joy to meet Catherine today and spend some time with her, and I do thank you for the hat. I am excited about being in a city that actually has a Major League Baseball team because that's going to be exciting to be able to exit, in the evening and enjoy some good baseball, and I'll make sure that I wear this hat as we attend those games. And the parent club of my AAA team was the Texas Rangers, and so they're in the American League. We're going to be okay to cheer for the Nationals here in the National League. So excited about that. It's been an honor and a joy to be with you this morning. I've got a chance to meet some of you, and it's an honor and joy to be with you in this setting. And as I spent time with you this morning, it was something that was abundantly clear to me that you love what you do. There's an old saying that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I want to say thank you to Catherine. I want to say thank you to her for her leadership in the last month or so. It took us a little while to get here, so I was thankful for her leadership during that time frame. But I want to say thank you to each of the career individuals that have been serving this agency for quite some time. Most of the people I met this morning, I think the least amount of years that Herb, was 19 years. That's quite something. That says a lot about the mission of the agency and the people that are here. And I want to commend you for your service to this country and service to this agency, and thank you for that. You know, I know it's very difficult to capture in one speech the vision and direction of an agency. And I also recognize that you don't know me very well. In fact, you don't know me hardly at all, other than maybe what you've read in the newspaper and seen on the news. And I might suggest to you that, just like Paul Harvey used to say, I look forward to sharing the rest of the story with you as we spend time together. But this is a beginning. It's a beginning for us to spend time and discuss certain principles by which I think this agency should conduct itself. And I look forward to leading this agency with these following principles in mind. There was a book several years ago that I read called Founding Brothers. I don't know if you've had the pleasure of reading that book. It's actually a book by Joseph Ellis, an historian from the University of Vermont. And it's a book about a series of historical encounters with the founding generation. And there's one particular chapter called The Dinner, an historical vignette that took place between Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and Alexander Hamilton. And the dinner took place as a result of something that was going on in Congress in 1790. It was a very difficult and challenging issue called the Assumption Bill. As you know, as the colonies came out of the Revolutionary War, the eventual states, there was tremendous debt that the states had incurred, and they could not pay the debt. And Alexander Hamilton had a wonderful idea, he thought. He thought this newfound federal government should assume that debt, consolidate all the debt, and seek to pay it off in behalf of the states. Well, that caused certain individuals like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison to be concerned about the role of this federal government and the newfound responsibilities that it might have. And so there was intractability around some very important issues. Debt, the role between the federal government and the states. It sounds a little bit like today. And they did something, though, that doesn't happen very much today. They actually got together. They actually spent time together. You know, in this environment that we live in this country today, it is a very, forgive the reference, but it's a very toxic environment. We have jerseys that we put on, both politically and otherwise. And that's something that I think is damaging to the overall objective of finding results and answers to some very challenging issues that we face as a country. But as they got together for dinner, and they dealt with this very difficult challenge of assuming debt and this idea that Alexander Hamilton had, they were able to work out a solution. And if you don't know, James Madison and Thomas Jefferson said, we'll let the bill go forward in Congress, but in exchange, we want something. We want the capital of the United States government to be moved from New York City to the shores of the Potomac, near the homeland of Virginia. And we have the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. today, largely because of the dinner that took place between those three gentlemen. Now, I share that with you for these reasons, as far as principles that are important as we do our work together and as we journey together. One, they led. They actually found solutions. They worked to be problem solvers. They didn't shirk their responsibility. They took that very difficult challenge that they faced in 1790 and said, we will do our job and find an answer to this challenge. And as we do our work here, we deal with very important, monumental issues with respect to our future environment and our natural resources. And we must have the same kind of attitude of finding answers, being problem solvers, and making decisions and leading to make those decisions. Secondly, and I think this is in short supply in this country today, they acted with civility. And civility is something that I believe in very much. You know, we ought to be able to get together and wrestle through some very difficult issues and do so in a civil manner. We ought to be able to be thoughtful and exchange ideas and engage in debate and make sure that we do find answers to these problems, but do so with civility. And I think that was exemplified in the story that I shared with you from Founding Brothers. But thirdly, and this is something that I mentioned to Catherine this morning, and as I met with some of you that have been here for some time, I mentioned to you as well. I seek to be a good listener. Those of you that have been here for quite some time, whether it's in the air area or water or whatever area that you may be in, I look forward to spending time with you. Not just to, get to address certain issues, but really spend time and dig down deep with respect to how we're going to do business in the future and get to know you personally and how I can be a resource to you as you do your work. And I think that this story of listening, you can't lead unless you listen. I seek to listen, learn, and lead with you to address these issues that we face as a nation. Now, there's a second book that I've read, and I've read more than two, but these two books are two of my favorites. The second book that I would highlight for you that kind of bookends our discussion this morning is a book that came out a couple of years ago called Inventing Freedom. It's a wonderful book about the uniqueness of the American experiment, about the uniqueness of how we do business as a country. And so these general principles of civility, finding answers, making sure that we listen to one another as we solve problems, I think those are general principles that we should keep in mind. But I'd like to share two or three others with you that I think are equally important, that kind of flow from this book, Inventing Freedom, about the importance and the uniqueness of the American experiment. One is that process matters. You know, this is not going to sound earth-shattering to you, but I think it's very important to say. Regulations ought to make things regular. Regulators exist to give certainty to those that they regulate. Those that we regulate ought to know what's expected of them so that they can plan and allocate resources to comply. That's really the job of a regulator. And the process that we engage in adopting regulations is very, very important because it sends a message. It sends a message that we take seriously our role of taking comment and offering response and then making informed decisions on how it's going to impact those in the marketplace to achieve the ends that we have in statute. So process matters, and we should respect that and focus upon that and try to avoid, not try to avoid, but do avoid abuses that occur sometimes. Guidance through rulemaking, or using the guidance process to do rulemaking, or engaging in litigation, regulation through litigation, consent decrees that actually bypass the Administrative Procedures Act. We need to be open and transparent and objective in how we do rulemaking and make sure that we follow the letter of the law as we do so, because that will send, I think, a great message to those that are regulated, but more importantly, they will know what's expected of them and they can act accordingly. Which leads me to the second point, rule of law. As we do rulemaking, as we engage in process, it needs to be tethered to the statute. The only authority that any agency has in the executive branch is the authority given to it by Congress. Sometimes those authorities are broadly stated, giving much discretion to an agency to engage in the authority given to it, granted. But other times Congress has been very prescriptive. It's been very specific on what we can and cannot do as an agency. We need to respect that. We need to follow that, because when we do that, guess what happens? We avoid litigation, we avoid the uncertainty of litigation, and we reach better ends and outcomes at the end of the day. And the third thing with respect to this process and rule of law is that federalism matters. Federalism matters. And as you know, because you've dealt with these issues for a number of years, Congress has been very prescriptive in providing, in many instances, a very robust role, an important role of the states. In fact, as I met with many this morning, as I met with Catherine, we talked about each of our regional offices and how important they are at partnering with the respective departments of environmental quality at the state level with respect to enforcement and other related issues. And I seek to ensure that we engender the trust of those at the state level, that those at the state level see us as partners in this very important mission we have as an agency and not adversaries. So federalism is something that's important, process is something that's important, and obviously rule of law is important as well as we do our business. John Muir one time said, "Everyone needs beauty as well as bread, places to pray in and play in." I really believe that we can be better as a country. I believe that we as an agency and we as a nation can be both pro-energy and jobs and pro-environment, that we don't have to choose between the two. I think our nation has done better than any nation in the world at making sure that we do the job of protecting our natural resources and protecting our environment while also respecting the economic growth and jobs our nation seeks to have. And I hope that as we journey together, that we will establish places to pray in and places to play in for our citizens and do the very important work as an agency. Thank you very much for coming today. I look forward to serving you in the future. Thank you.
That concludes our event this morning. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And a scarf. Okay. Would you mind putting this on me?